There, boom. Cool.
And that is why we elected you bishop, because you can troubleshoot Zoom for us. So
That's true. It's one of my hats.
without any further ado, Bishop, welcome to the Pocono Mission District.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much, Pastor and
US
Dean.
22 West and I-81 South. This route is 7 minutes faster than I-81.
This synod is going places. This mission district is going places, and we don't need any directions because God's getting us there. So I think Chris Cunningham, you had a really good suggestion earlier, which is we might try turning our video signals off, and that might make it a little bit cleaner just while I put some of these slides up. If you know how to do that, you could do that. It's down there where it says stop video. You can just click stop video. We'll be able to see each other again in just a bit, but it might make the audio a little smoother. And now that I've said goodbye to all of you, can you hear me okay? I have no idea whether you can or not.
We can hear you.
Okay,
Yep.
good.
What?
Zoom sometimes is capricious about whether it has a good signal or not, but I'm glad to be here. I have requested to be present live and not recorded to all of these Zoom Mission District assemblies to get to see you, but also to get to hear the business portion, at least a portion of that, and understand some of the life that happens in our mission districts. And this is, without a doubt, a lively mission district. I have been up here on a couple of several virtual occasions, even over the last fast 3 months that I've been on in the job, and have been at a couple of meetings that you all have had, and so I would say continue to invite me to things, and if my schedule allows me to do it, I will be there, Zoom, or as we move towards it, more and more face-to-face. And I really admire how you've been careful as much as you can in this time, though we have a variety of congregations in a variety of settings, and congregations do have the freedom to make their own decisions based on their local situations. We have tried to make it clear to do the safe thing for your pastors, for your leaders, for your most vulnerable members. And I appreciate the work that's been done in maintaining that through these unprecedentedly challenging pandemic months that we've been through. I spent most of my time in this pandemic as a pastor, and so I understand the strains and the stresses of both producing a regular TV show every week and trying to keep a life of a congregation going. And I applaud the way that so many of you have been successful in that, including in a time when not everybody has access to a rostered minister to be there every Sunday in their congregation. Either a called pastor is not available, or a designated, or a transition pastor is not available for some of you. And that is a strain that you are under, that I am well aware of. I pause to say well aware because I'm learning as many contexts as I can. But I think that it is a challenge that's been ongoing, and a challenge we will continue to face, a challenge to find ways to deal with not enough pastors to cover all of our locations and all of our contexts. It calls for creativity, calls for patience, calls for being very open to what the Spirit is saying, and to open our minds and hearts to being adaptive, as Pastor Nielsen said so well. I appreciate, Gene, too, that moment when you were thanking people, and that you had that moment when you're like, oh, did I forget a name or two? I love that, because that happens to me all the time, because there's always so many people to thank across the Synod. I'm thankful for for Pastor Nielsen and his continual support on my staff, his willingness to continue to move into this role, and to be a role model with all of you for an incredibly, not just well-run, but spirit-led mission district. You all play a role in that. I'm thankful for your dean, Michael Schultes, and all the good work that he does. His efficient running even of this meeting is a great sign of the kind of good leadership that he has provided for all of you. Your Mission District Council, yes, I celebrate that with you as well. And those who have served as officers and those who have served on that council, God bless you for that work. All of those congregational presidents that gather with Pastor Nielsen and work on good stuff and build good community across congregations. That's really a spectacular model for how we work together and partner together. And I do have in my prayers several of you, but I do pray as well for Deb North as she continues to work through the health challenges she's dealing with, and to pray with her congregation as she needs to think about this time of disability. We have much prayers, and I know that work will be done and the Spirit will lead us as well to help guide that congregation through these times. But the prayers continue. I'm thankful as well to be part of a synod that has so many moving parts and a great many personalities, a great many creative ideas, and faces struggles that are unique to our area and yet are true across the church and across the denominations, not just Lutheran challenges that we all face. And of course, great national challenges and global challenges that we face. All of that is true of where we are today. And yet I dare to follow the Spirit in doing a bold thing, declaring a theme for us that is, well, it's defying of all the forces that seek to pull us down. That theme for us, for this synod that will take us into our Synod Assembly, but will take us beyond that, is the following: growing young and vital. So I'm going to put that theme up on the screen right now and share a few of the thoughts that have framed this. Let me make sure I got the right setup here. Can you see a slide that says growing young and vital? Anyone who can turn their audio on. Did I share the right thing?
Yes.
Very good.
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to move into the playing of the PowerPoint of this. Did that fill your screen with PowerPoint? Okay.
Yes.
If you want to still see that pretty big, but you want to be able to have a few more controls, if you have an escape button, you can press that and it'll still be big, but it'll give you more options. You don't have to do that, but that's one of the things that can kind of open up your screens for you if you need to a little bit. This theme, growing young and vital, might look like a multiple choice that locks some people out. Well, we might be growing, Bishop, but we're not so young. We might be vital, but we're not really growing. Or we might have some young stuff, but they're not really feeling very vital or feeling like we're growing much with them right now. This isn't meant to be exclusionary. It's meant to be aspirational and broad in its definition. Not only the idea that we're young at heart, but also the fact that we're intergenerational, that every generation has an important role to play. And at the same time, we're in a new generational space, aren't we? And church is being changed all around us. In some ways we control, many ways we don't. So this movement called Growing Young, which we'll talk more about in a second, is an opportunity not to just focus on one age group, but to find a way to bring a sense of energy and life to all we do, and to lift up those ways that that's already happening and talk about it with each other and share it. It's about sharing strength. It's about shoring up against challenges. And it's most of all about the life and the light of Christ in our midst, in our congregations, in our hearts, across this synod. And it's meant to kind of draw a line, not to separate us, but a line of imagination that says, what does it mean to cross over into some new places? And yet, what do we bring with us as we do that journey through the wilderness? As I discern what this means for me and then how it moves me out and forward to help you all and provide a leadership philosophy and style that listens first, then moves to collaboration, and then creation is born in the midst of that. There are three things that center me, and I invite you to contemplate how they center you. First being God reliant. No duh. No duh, right? But don't you think we live in a culture right now that has a trust deficit?
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't know how to trust. Doesn't know how to trust facts because doesn't know where to turn. Doesn't know how to trust institutions because they failed them in various places. Doesn't know how to trust each other because we're only human and we make mistakes and we disappoint each other continually. So we start with what it says on the money. Sorry to talk about something as crass as that, but what's it say on the money? In God we trust, right? Not trying to sound nationalistic here, but there's a point to that, being God reliant. That brings us back to the center of this screen and the center of our lives. We are Christ-centered. Christ revealed to us, Jesus of Nazareth. How many problems do we have that if we looked around and looked at them, we go, well, did we put Christ in the middle of this or not? Not a judgment, just a question. Being Christ-centered also means realizing that Christ is at the center, but is always going out to the edges. So wherever you think Christ isn't, Christ is already in the middle of that. How do I know that? Because we're Spirit-led. Spirit-led is the driving force of everything. The Spirit moved over the waters in the beginning, and the Spirit will draw all people to Christ as he is lifted up. And unto that day when he returns to us, the Spirit will continue to lead us back into resurrected life and back into being in his presence in an undeniably unending way that we can start seeing now. But Spirit-led means in the desert too. It means in the wilderness through really hard things. So how do we get through them? Well, we come back to that centering, trusting in that God, and we cling to this mysterious thing that Christ has died. Christ is risen. We know these, right? You could say them with me. Christ has died. Christ is risen. What? Christ will come again. This is our declaration of faith as well as the mystery of it all, because it tells us and frees us to do what we have to do. But it's a big old mystery how we're going to get there. We do it through Christ, being led by the Spirit, centered in Christ, and reliant that God's going to be present with us. So we get to this dividing line where we stand on one side and the future stands on the other, or where the other stands across from us, facing us. We go, where do we go? We ask ourselves a question. We say, as the body of Christ, a real body with arms and legs and eyes and elbows and mouths, ears, what are our vital signs? It's a hard question to ask, as we have all pulled ourselves through this horrible pandemic in which life signs has a totally different meaning to it, doesn't it? As we've watched people on life support, pandemic or not. But worse, we haven't watched them. We haven't seen them because we can't visit them in the hospital. We should lament not only the loss of our people, which is first and foremost, but the loss of our connections to things. This cannot stand. And so we need to look for the living body of Christ, raised from the dead, so alive, present in a very mysterious way in every one of you and in every congregation, in every expression of church across the Synod, and say, what are our vital signs? Godly signs, signs of God's vitality in our individual members, in our congregations, mission districts, organizations, and ministries across the Synod. What are our vital signs? A question that I'm inviting you to ask yourself and to ask each other. It's going to take us into these months and this year to come, probably further than that. Let me start with a blank slate of vital signs. This is a vital sign that we're gathering here today. It's a vital sign that you took time out of a beautiful day like this. Not so beautiful, but kind of nice. But it's spring. But here you are on Zoom. Yuck. But here you are, because you're a vital sign. You're my vital sign. I give thanks for you. I couldn't do one day of this job. I couldn't do 5 minutes of this job without knowing there were people like you out there praying for me and believing that I might have some spirit-led powers to lead you somewhere. But here's a vital sign. Let me get this specific, okay? Otherwise, you get me on here for 2 hours and you're like, gosh, that guy likes to talk. Vital sign, mission support. Did you know that 97% of our congregations gave so that we were 95% of our budgeted amount for mission support? Friends, think about that for a second. What the hell did we just go through? Are y'all made of money? Well, you did this. Anyway, I'm in awe of it. This shouldn't have happened. We should have all tightened our belts and said, no thanks, mission support that supports the larger church or something beyond our walls. That's nice, but I got to survive. And yet look what we did. Look what we did. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you were a part of a congregation or something that couldn't quite make that happen, no shame, no guilt on you. You're part of a church that carries itself. God powers things up. You'll come along. And those that you gave the extra mile, you made that possible. So I'm thankful for that. I couldn't be more thankful for that. You're going to hear me thanking for that every time you see me in the next few months, because we have to remember we do this by the power of Christ in the backs of the living Christ, who is you all, the body of Christ. Look at this new vital sign. You know who this is? New pastor in your mission district at St. John's in Stroudsburg. Ordained just this Friday. Took a 5-hour drive out one way and a 4-hour drive back, and it was worth every second of it. I'd driven twice that. Somebody drove me out too, which was nice. A member of our staff, Travis Woodfield, took me out there. This pastor's incredible. She's going to power you all up. She is spirit-led. Name is Liz Kerner, and you're going to get to meet her more here when she comes back over and is a part of that. But right now, she's going through some tough times, toughest of times. We had a pretty quick installation for her because her mom is real sick with complications from lung and brain cancer. And we were going to do this so she could be present. That's why we did it pretty quickly. Well, she took a turn for the worst a week ago on Sunday and went into the hospital. So we had to beam her in, just like you're watching this. We had to beam her in, and she could sort of see it. She was in and out of consciousness. The signal didn't quite work, and thank goodness I brought Travis Woodfield with me, who really does know technology better than me. He's on our staff, and Travis got the video to work and was able to get a signal over to her. We drove back on Friday night, and Liz, Pastor Liz now, texted me and said, Bishop, my mom just died. Lord, hear our prayer for Liz and for her whole family and for her friends of her mom, Gail, and for her father, Paul, and for her brother. Please help and carry her through. Let these good people here in this mission district carry her as well. And the good people of St. John's, bless them and care for them, to care for her. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Nonetheless, a vital sign of our synod. Nonetheless. So crossing this over, I want you to think about it two ways to see what a vital sign can be. A vital sign as a goal, which means big picture, bigger challenges, systemic challenges, things that take a longer time to do, that are more like movements and culture changes than they are really goals. I mean, I use that word goals just to try to make it bigger, like these things that are just over the horizon, or maybe a ways over the horizon. Maybe there's a big mountain in between, but we could still do these things. And vital signs for now, immediate concerns we have, and actions that we're already taking, ministries and life that we're already engaged in that are clear vital signs. Those are the two ways to look at this. So if we think about these vital sign goals, I'd invite us to think about them as a 6-year journey. So goals are more like highways taking us to places. And I want you to think about 3 lanes, a 3-lane path. And I also put up here 3 + 3 because we think of 3 years and then we do a check, and then 3 more years and we do another check. And that equals my entire term as bishop, 6 years, with the first year being eaten into quite a lot. So we're already having to hit the ground running, you know. Simply put, they go like this: growing young, which you've already got a taste of, gaining strength, going beyond. Growing young is a nationwide thing that's been going on. It came out of what's called the Fuller Institute. And I know many people throughout our synod have already been a part of this. It's well backed up by the ELCA as well. And I know in this mission district, it's had its expression, and people are working on book groups and action plans centered around this incredible wheel here that's spinning out all kinds of leaders. It's starting and centering in folks like Sammy Kelly and Pastor Lauren Applegate and Pastor Becca Minneke Conley, and pastors and leaders in this mission district. In fact, it's lifting up a lot of new leaders who see this as a way they can enter the wheel of ministry. And this circle, as you see, is centered in Christ as, once again, the center of the community. It has these 6 little, if you see, there's like 6 little pieces on this wheel, each of which are called core commitments. And they talk about being church at all ages, but are particularly meaningful to those who are younger today. And we're going to be talking more about this at the assembly, but there are entering places for everyone. You see that kicking out, growing old? That doesn't mean that old people might as well check at the door because they're not around anymore. As every day I become more of a certified old person, I got to find my place in this wheel too. No, it's more of a state of mind, a kind of a stuckness that it's about, but it makes room for all of us to be more centered in Christ in our context. That's the bigger wheel on the outside there in the gray. The word context means meeting us in the place where we're at with the people we got, and yet drawing all people into that center of Christ. It's going to be fun, and we're going to be talking more about this as we go. Lane number 2, gaining strength. This is grows out of a movement that has been going across the ELCA right now. 2 pastors are leading it. Their names are there, Pastor Doug and Pastor Scott. It came out of bigger churches as far as this number of people who worship, but it is something that I think unique on our territory will connect with a lot of people. And the thing is, it uniquely connects with the Pocono Mission District, because you all have led the way in understanding what partnerships look like. That could be ecumenical partners. That could be reaching across the borders of our synod. That could be bringing together congregations to work in unique ways. You all are going to teach us what this looks like in this gaining strength movement. It's also going to be very much a part of the work of Pastor Mike Benetham, who's continuing to work hard for our synod. And he is our director of evangelical mission. He's going to be doing a lot of work with this. You've heard parts of it called the Anchor Church movement. Does that sound familiar to anybody out there? Are you working with something like this already? I think we're choosing to call it gaining strength because it does more than just do the cool things that the Anchor Church movement does. I think it's going to be looking across who we are over the next 3+3 years and beyond to how we can gain strength by working together. The path forward is first identifying who we are as leaders, our pastors and our lay leaders who lead the charge in congregations. Help them to identify who they are and what their strengths are and to build on those strengths. Then helping congregations do the same. What are your strengths as a congregation? What are the assets that you have? Third, you then take those recognition of those things you're strong at as a leader and as a congregation and find partners who can double that strength because they're similarly strengthened, equipped with strength, or also partnering with people with a totally different strength so you have complementary pieces that fit together like a puzzle. Again, this is not alien or strange to this mission district, but we're going to find ways to do this, not as a program, but as ways of modeling and sharing with each other. And then finally, we encourage these partnered congregations, partnered communities to work together to build ministry in the community in maybe totally new ways because their strengths make that possible that they couldn't do before. Third and final lane is going beyond. And the full name of this is a hard name to take, but we are death and resurrection people. Last time I checked, the tomb is still empty. Last time I also checked, the death rate per person is 1. We're not going to escape it. And a congregation has similarities to a people because it's made up of people, and they die too. But there are ways that they can die well and leave with purpose and lasting legacy. So the full name of this third lane is going beyond death to life. That's it right there, the D word. In the next year, we're going to get a clearer picture of the state of our synod by collecting stories, evidence, which means not just the numbers, but what's really happened out of things that people have worked on. And then data. What are the numbers? Because numbers do help us. They're not the whole story, but they're an essential part of the story. The following year, then we're going to build a new strategic plan to help struggling, stuck, or finishing, dying congregations to live well, to serve well, or to finish, to end, to die well. To leave a lasting legacy, a faithful legacy, a purposeful legacy. Because even congregations that are strong and are doing great, they have a life cycle too. And they can begin to bless just the same as if you're 30 years old, it does not hurt to make a will because it helps you to imagine how you'd like to bless people after you're gone. And so all of us can think about if we could write an obituary right now, what would we want it to say about our life to come? We can do this. We're people that are baptized into Christ's death. We can talk about death. And we can look beyond it and transcend it as well. Finally, we would end up in the third year where we can implement this plan and start assessing its results to see what it means for our congregations that need it. And that I would label as every congregation. So these 3 vital signs, boom, 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 there they are. They are pieces that allow us to look over that horizon line that you just saw up here and imagine where God is pulling us over the next 6 years and beyond. It leads us to some very specific new directions. And the thing that we can control right now is the staff that's helping to support this as we begin to move towards you all in helping us figure out what that means. You're the ones that are really going to be the creative ones, but we can provide some help in framing that creativity. New staff includes, as I said, Mike, who's not new. Many of us know Mike Benetham very well, but he's going to change his role, or he's going to focus it, I should say. He's going to continue to be what he's been for 12 plus years, which is the Director of Evangelical Mission, in which that's a position we get supported by the ELCA. and he serves both the local and the national church in that position. That means he's going to be looking at new stuff and helping to find ways to lift it up and walk alongside of it. He's also going to have this title for us and our staff, the Executive Associate for Innovation. What are those new things that we can try and lift up? He will be transitioning away from being the answer man of the Synod. So if you're used to calling Mike up and getting an answer, it's going to happen less and less. But we're working on how we get those answers that aren't just centered in Mike's brain. He's going to be much more out in the field. He's going to be supervising these 3 vital sign goals I just mentioned to you, helping him to set up milestones and have measurable goals. And he just brings a wealth of wisdom. Trust. I trust him explicitly, and I know many of you do. Implicitly and explicitly trust him. Second staff member that is completely new to her role is Pastor Rachel Dietz. She's going to be our executive associate of the bishop for leadership. And it's a big job, a big full-time job. She's going to be, first of all, the associate of the bishop, as Neil Nielsen is for the Poconos. She's going to be the associate for both West Berks and East Berks Mission District. A territory, I will tell you, that's larger than a good percentage of of other synods. Yes, we have a large synod. And she's covering that portion of it, which is a pretty big territory. She's also working on candidacy, which means helping people find and pursue their vocation to becoming a rostered minister, word of sacrament or word of service, a deacon or a pastor. She's also going to be connected with that, working on first call theological education and the movement of our pastors across the synod and across the world, bringing in and recruiting in new people to be on our territory as well. And as we do these things and the word gets out, I suspect there'll be more people that will want to join us here, new pastors, and not just starting out as new pastors like Liz is doing, but people who want to move into our territory who are established pastors. And looking at leadership as a stewardship idea and stewardship as a leadership idea, trying to help those of you who are leaders to live out and to share the idea of generosity. She is also going to be picking up a lot of work from what Mike used to do as far as being the answer man. And she's just a brilliant. Every one of those adjectives is 100% true. And the reason why I think God's called her to this position. Eric Gombert currently serves as our bookkeeper, has done that for a couple of years now. He is now going to expand his work. It's still a part-time position, but he's increasing the number of hours. He's going to be director of operations, and he is also continuing his work doing music and cantor for St. John's in Allentown, but he is a numbers whiz. He's also a technology whiz. So he's going to take a lot of those pieces that Mike used to do too. He's very efficient, and he's going to help us to get by with more technology, which makes it possible to work with a limited staff that we have, rather than hiring new staff members to do a lot of support. We're moving a lot towards using Microsoft 365 and Teams, and that's a big change for us, but we're getting there. New position, Deacon Travis Woodfield, who I mentioned a moment ago. He is a totally new job, a totally new title for our synod. Director of Congregational Legacy and Purpose. He's going to be centering in that third lane I mentioned, growing, young, and vital. Going from death, beyond death to life. He's going to be focusing very much on what it means to have legacy and purpose as congregations of all sizes and all places of their life cycle. He is, at his studies, his academic work, and his professional business work have been centered in this idea of business and also congregational life cycles. Born, just like a human, born, grow up, live a full life, and then die. Congregations go through that because they're made of people. And he's a very creative what if thinker, and he's doing all this work about 25 hours a week for us. It's also a test model. He's signed on for us for 2 years for this, and if we're getting places we want to go and he's the right guy to do it, he's going to stay with us. If not, he's going to move on, and we're going to solve these problems in other ways. So this is a way to keep us focused on the job at hand. What is that job? Research and develop that strategic plan for congregations. We're serious about this. How to live well, to serve well, and especially to end well. He's going to help us do that, help us to do God's work of moving beyond death to life. And then finally, I mentioned Lauren Wolf-Blatt. Pastor Wolf-Blatt is our Director of Communications and Events. She's doing this as part-time while continuing to be a full-time pastor and a dean of a mission district. She's a very energetic person and has a lot of know-how and technological ability as well. A lot of young energy, but a lot of wisdom. And she has worked out a plan, which some of you might also be helping and working with, to achieve a completely new website and web presence for us by this summer. If you want to see us with a new web page, you're going to see it, and it's going to be both attractive, but also helping us to share information better than ever before. We are working with our wonderful associates of the bishop, Neil being such an important example of that, such a leader among this group. But the color, the ones that are blue and in italics are new to their role, or their role has been expanded. Jean Huber is not new to that role, but she's added an entire, so she's doubled the amount of work she's doing. Carl is not new to being an associate bishop, but he has done that in other places and hasn't done it for 6 years, no, 3 years or so. And so he's re-entered in that. He's a font of wisdom as well as a lot of fun to be around. And it also says that for each of our 3 vital signs goals, those 3 lanes, we have someone that's kind of championing and running them and working on them. So Sammy Kelly, who is our Director of Youth and Family Ministry right now, is working with Rachel to on the Growing Young movement and helping to drive that along with a lot of pastors and lay leaders. Mike Benetham is taking the lead with the Gaining Strength lane, but Rachel's also working with that one. And then the Going Beyond lane is led by Travis, with Eric Gomberg providing tech support as well. That's the next 3 years, but what about now? Well, I would sort of finish up here with this idea of 3 things. We are dealing with 3 national and local challenges: a nation and an area stricken by the coronavirus, but also stricken by a lot of national division and a trust deficit. We are living in a land that has a lot of environmental challenges and has a lot of struggles about what does it mean to faithfully love the place that we're planted. We also have a real struggle with engaging with each other because we've been so estranged from each other. But we've also been estranged from new people in our land who have immigrated here. We've been estranged from people that have been seen as not having a seat at the church's table before. And this is something we can work on. And all of us are working on these in one piece or another. Our specific way of working on it is going to be this Synod Assembly coming up. It's going to be both online and also have a separate component that's an in-person piece that we're called the Ministry Laboratory, or MinLab for short. Easier to remember. It will be asking, both of these events, we'll be asking ourselves the question that I started out with. What are our vital signs? And we'll be sharing ministries, especially on August 14th, that are things that illustrate in our mission districts, in our congregations, how we heal the hurt, love the land, and engage the stranger. So this leaves me ending this presentation and this time of talking directly at you to be thinking about questions that you can wonder about, that we're wondering about together. And I'm not full of answers at this point. I'm full of questions and a lot of what ifs. So question, the first one I mentioned, what are our vital signs and how can we grow and share them? How do we go beyond the pandemic? And what did we learn in this pandemic time? Such an excellent exercise that your dean started us off with is an exercise we need to continue to be doing as congregations, mission districts, and Synod. How can we grow and empower our Synod Council and our mission districts to continue the good work that they're doing, but to find out, face the particular challenges they're facing. We have an opportunity now to build on the great work of the Synod Council that we are, many of whom are continuing on, but a lot of new people are going to come on board. So please take to heart that idea of joining, of running for an open Synod Council's position and being a part of working on these questions. Then a question is a what if question. What if every congregation and every leader had a partner? I don't know exactly what that means yet, but I kind of think we're in a stage in our life as a synod when no congregation can be an island, and no rostered minister can imagine just being in one place. We need to be open to the idea that one pastor, one church is a harder model to sustain. And what does it look like to do something different that brings life to communities, life to congregations, life to rostered ministers, and most of all is sharing the life of Christ, sharing the life of Christ, sharing it. And to this, I would add whatever questions that you would have that fall along these same lines. That is what I have to share with you. If you're still with me, I don't know how much time we have. Have I exceeded all my time possibilities here? Are we done? Have I lost you all? Are you still? They're still awake faces. I see them. You can turn your video cameras back on. You're still there. Good. Thank God you're still there. You digested all this stuff. Give yourself a round of applause. Sorry to make you drink from a fire hose, but that's kind of where we're at. And it does leave me with questions. I hope you don't think that I'm just a rudderless, clueless leader wandering in the desert blind. But I think we need to keep asking each other questions and not have top-down decisions being made for you. We need to make these together. And then what we decide then needs to be enforced and followed through with by your bishop and your pastors and those people that are in leadership positions. But it's you all that needs to do the dreaming. And God's doing that through you. I'm open. How much questioning can we do?
We have about 20 minutes.
Okay.
So plenty of time for questions. If you have a question for the bishop, you can unmute yourself and ask, or if you'd prefer to send it in the chat, that would be fine. And I'll monitor the chat to make sure you catch anything that comes through there, Bishop.
Thank you, Pastor.
A quiet group today.
Warm out. Warm down. Does any of this bring you hope? I would wonder that. I see a question. Barbara, looks like you were about to say something.
We have a very older congregation. I'm just wondering if there's ways that we can bring like the younger people in, because I know that a lot of younger people around here have lost any type of religion, or even, I guess they kind of lost their hope, for any type of things that are going on in this world.
Do you mean like not just hope in the church, but just kind of hope across all institutions or something? Or was that?
Yeah, I would think so. Because I mean, like I said, I'm one of the younger ones in our congregation, and I'm not that young. So we have maybe one or two younger families, but nobody, because everybody's on the older side, nobody has, some thoughts of how to bring in younger families to, back to a congregation. Because since COVID even, I don't know if the younger families are even going. I mean, I know I haven't been going because I can't wear a mask, and I've been watching it, online. But once we are allowed to go back, I know I'm going to go back, but are the younger generation even watching it online? You know, are they even bothering now? You know, I feel we have to come up with answers, because otherwise we're not going to have a future of the congregations.
That's a realistic assessment. And one of the things I love the most about the Growing Young movement is that hold on, I'm gonna pull my head off. On the very first page, I wore my book out. I don't have a cover anymore. I took that slip cover off of the Growing Young book because it kept falling off. But very the beginning of this thing, and no one book's an answer, by the way, except for I think maybe this one has a couple of answers in it. But but it says highlighted. The first job of a leader is to define reality. So you just, Barb, can I call you Barb? You Barbara.
Yeah,
you Barbara.
that's fine. Fine.
That the first thing is to define reality, and you've defined a reality. But the other thing too is maybe we can dare to ask the question differently, like not what would attract young people, but what do we do that's meaningful enough to them that they want to be part of it, but more importantly, what are they a part of that we'd like to be part of, that we can be drawn into, that is places and ways that they're already there. So there's some opportunities in that, but it must be said that the whole Growing Young idea and movement is meant to answer that question you have, Barb. It's about what do they want and how can we do that? But it's not just like, let's completely stop being ourselves and totally be this, but let's be more fully ourselves and remember what we're all about here, being centered in Christ. And if we do that authentically, just as fully as we can, it's better to connect with people by being truly who we are than trying to be something we're totally not. The other thing is, how much can we look at, this is a harder one, okay, Barb, but well, not harder, but it's a different way of thinking about this, because it breaks down again that idea of, I'm not criticizing your congregation, I'm just saying, oh, our congregation doesn't have any young people. How can we bring them in, or why should we even be engaged in this? Well, the deal is, we're all the church together, right? So your congregation is more than the people that meet in your place. It's this one here and that one there. So how can these young people over here are my young people too, and those young people down in this end of the mission district are my people too. And so how can I work with a place where they're at, or a congregation that has them, to just be present with young people where they're at? And so that sense of, we don't have enough in our congregation, but if we thought of our congregation as our congregation plus this congregation and that congregation more, I'm not talking about knocking down walls and merging. That's not everybody's cup of tea and doesn't even make sense for everybody. But if we did more partnerships with places that have young people for whatever reason, they become our young people. And there are also ways you can send a message of support of young people by sponsoring somebody to do something or other, that the word will get out that you do that kind of stuff. And that will cause people to go, wow, they're doing that thing that really matters to this group of young people. I better check that out some more. But more importantly, you will transform, you'll change, and then you'll turn around. You know, this is a bad analogy, but it's sort of like, you know, when you're younger, before you're married, and you want to find somebody to marry. Sometimes when you're trying too hard, you never meet a person, right? But if you just decide to be yourself and whatever, along comes this person who suddenly you're attracted to each other, you get married, and life is great. So maybe we're trying too hard sometimes, and that we should really just try to be who we are and work with people who are who they are, and the message will come along. The people will come along. It's a simple answer to a hard problem. But
Right.
absolutely what that growing young circle, that's when I do this, that means a growing young thing. That is what the purpose of that is, not to attract, but to be authentic and reach out more than pull in. And you'll get all ages. Honestly, you'll get all ages with that same stuff, but you'll especially get those younger people. Thank you for that question. David, I see David's hand up.
Bishop, can you expound on what you mean by partnerships? I mean, many of our congregations have partnered with local food banks in our communities, different shelters. Where are you going with that?
We have a yes God, so I say yes to all those. Those are partnerships. They're real. That's why I put these 3 things that I call vital signs for now. And however you are healing the hurt, however you are loving the land, however you are engaging the stranger now, great. Double down on them, celebrate them, tell other people about them, because other people aren't doing that. They're doing something else. Along with that, I think partnership could use more godly imagination. By that I mean, God's got a big picture, something that we've never thought of before. I mean, humans, the human analogy is 12 years ago, none of us had heard of an iPhone, and we didn't care about it because we didn't know it. But then when it got invented, we all, for some reason, had to have one. Or an Android, whatever you got. What's the iPhone for partnership? I don't know yet. You might already have the model that we'll discover and share. So I think, but let's talk about real quickly what a partnership should do. Should be something that both people in the partnership are sacrificing something and sharing something, and that both get transformed. They become different and better than they were before in the partnership. It also is something that pictures how God's love and life are being shared. And so you just look around and say, how has this brought us more alive? And brought more life to the people around us. That's a partnership. But it's also, let me tell you one hard thing it does. Galatians, share one another's burdens. Pain. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of hurting across the world and across our church. How do we share pain better together? Because I think one of the saddest things about being church right now is how much people hurt in isolation. There are pastors who feel so alone. There are congregations that feel like they don't have any options, and who would they partner with? Or they're so far out, they're so remote. They're so depressed, they're so resource poor. Who would they partner with? And we need to define what our pain is and understand how can we share that pain together. And we need to speak it and then find a way to name it and claim it, and then say, I need help. How could you help us to do this? And so some of the numbers we will get that we're working on defining, the data, is not to blame people or to say this church does bad, this church does good, but how is this church hurting? What do the numbers say about its hurt? And, when a pastor is able to find out, this is an example, when a pastor is able to find out that somebody in their congregation, either their giving went way up or their giving went way down, a pastor then is able not to go and say, you say thank you if it went up, of course. If it went down, you didn't go, what the hell? You haven't given anything this month. It's more a matter of, are you okay? What's happened? Mm-hmm. And to be able to talk to a person or a family confidentially to help them to understand what pain they're suffering because they had to make a tough choice for some reason. Same kind of thing. And it can't all be done by staff because there's not enough of us. I'm one bishop and there's not a big enough staff, but we're going to work together to figure out how do we define the pain and share that pain better. And partnerships can help with pain. They can. Now, we have to speak realistically to that. If the pain is because we want to be something that it's not possible for us to be anymore, we have to deal with that pain. And in that case, it's analogous. It connects with the really horrible idea of hospice and care with people who are in a congregational life cycle where they're finishing. How do you help them with that pain then to to pay it forward, to bless forward? Because usually there are ways to do this that the people don't die, just the congregation dies. And how can those people that are left move to another place to be, but also share what they have to bless something community and let them help to make that decision rather than have that decision made by the last person that turns the lights off. You know, I switched gears on you on that about but I'm trying to show the range of partnership that needs to happen. And there's partnership in every single one of those lanes. Growing young is 100% partnership. Gaining strength is 120. Ooh, I just blew my math. 120% partnership. I over-exaggerated. But so is going beyond. Because if we've learned nothing in this pandemic time, what horror it is. I'm still sad that people have died by themselves in their nursing homes and in their hospitals. Let that teach us, not that we should blame ourselves or what happened, but to say, do what we can to not be alone. We can't do these things alone.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What else is in the chat?
Okay, we have about 5 minutes. Any other questions or?
Oh, I like what you said, Larry Lane. Partnership is like a marriage. And how did you get married? You romance each other. I found the book, The 7 Habits. Yes, 7 Habits still works. It is still powerful. Lays out a structural roadmap for growing and achieving any type of goal that you set out. And that man came from a place of faith and understands the love of God. And that the way that our grace-filled Lutheran perspective is about a God wooing us, not driving or forcing us. So how can we start making choices of partnership and planning that help us to love more and to leave a better loving legacy for people, and also to find life rising out of death? It all needs, if we can do that at a time when we can do it with a loving graciousness versus a panicked end of life kind of decision. The more we can do that, I think the more we'll bring peace to the world and to our particular corner of it. Zoom has taught me to be particularly aware of the fact that you need to wait.
Yes.
Because I have spent my time where I've spent a full 30 seconds trying to find the right button, and I missed my chance to say something. It happens every week someplace or another. So it's a good skill that we can take beyond the Zoom time, and there will never be a beyond the Zoom time. I'm not afraid to tell you that. But especially in a broad synod and as broad a mission district as we have, there'll be times. What we just need to do is get that broadband around to more people. So I do support anything that kind of helps us to figure out how to do that, a business partnership with government.
Bishop, I received a question from someone here. Are we working through high schools to promote a free ministry in the Lutheran Synod as other colleges do to promote their education?
What a great idea. I see what you're saying. So like, why aren't we at career fairs? Whoever typed that? Like, why don't we get a seat at the career fairs table? Absolutely. You write that down. If that's the spirit of that question, it may mean something else. I don't know. Yeah, the seminaries and thus us, because we support the church-wide stuff and through our mission support and all that, have found ways to get pretty much free tuition for students that get to that point. Who knows about that? And there's some incredible congregational opportunities in this mission district right now. Well, not so much that I want to wait 20 years before it happens, but you know what I mean. There's a lot of vocational vitality in this work. And I like people like Liz Kerner, who's coming in here to be a new pastor. She knew about it when she was 12. And she's in her 20s now and has been, focused on being this, but she's doing it for reasons of genuine vocational calling. And that's awesome to know that there are people of all ages and yes, young people who are still doing that and are called to do that. I would not be surprised. There was a bump in stuff happening post 9/11. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some kind of bump in at least spiritual seeking and vocational connection coming out of this, if we all kind of buckle down and be aware of the fact that the hard lessons of this pandemic, I think, will drive more people to go, I want authentic, real God stuff. And we can offer that. You all can offer that. I'm going to get out and speak more on it. And part of my reason for wanting, and I will be getting out more, is just to celebrate what you all have to offer for people in your congregations, which is real life and real people doing the real work to bring God's life to people, to heal hurts and to love the land and to engage the stranger. And there's a million ways you could probably label what God does, but I thought those three labels encompass a lot of what we're dealing with right now. And I will say that I did them that way to let all politics come to the table. You probably noticed that, right? So if you are someone who doesn't focus as much on climate change, it's not as big a thing for you, you still love the land. You take care of the land, you grow things, you have growing projects, you care about the physical nature of reality. You're out in the woods, you love all that kind of stuff. If you have hurts to heal, the pandemic infected everybody well. I mean, it was harder for the older people, but you know what I mean. It didn't affect us across political lines, but we're all hurting. And engaging the stranger who's feeling estranged in your congregation right now? Everybody, probably. People of color who aren't there, who could be. As we say, young people who might feel left out. LGBT people who might feel left out. And yes, 57-year-old white guys like me, who also can feel estranged because they don't know where they're supposed to sit and be now either. And can they even speak up? We can all feel estranged in our own backyards, can't we?
Well, thank you very much for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
It's been a joy.
And hope to meet you in person at one of these in the near future.